What's up everyone, this is Nimish. Welcome back to my channel. As we wrap up the year, it's time to talk about the best of Malayalam films 2025, and I have not watched every single Malayalam film. There could be many movies that are under the radar that I have still missed out on, so I definitely need your comments and thoughts after this video on what those films are. And I do want to call out at the start 5 very acclaimed films that I'm yet to watch. My apologies, I have not watched them yet, but I'm going to set those aside just to make sure you know I haven't watched them. Those films are Echo, Kalam Kaval, Narivetta, Feminici Fatima, and Avihitam. These are 5 what I hear as absolutely stunning solid films that definitely deserve to be on this list, considering I haven't watched those 5 and probably more. We're going to talk about 6 of my favorite films and give some honorable mentions to a couple others that really stole the show this year according to me based on what I have watched. So without further ado, let's get right into it. We'll first talk about the most obvious ones, and that is, the biggest hit of the year, I think, across India, which is Loca Chapter 1. I mean, this movie had its own genre, its own sort of tale that was rooted in the culture of Kerala literature, Malayalam literature, and bringing that to screen with a vision for a multiverse, with a vision for a trilogy or even more, and making this sort of superhero type universe that is led by a female that we have never seen before in the Indian film industry is a complete tip of the hat moment by the audiences to the filmmaker. It's an absolute achievement on all fronts. With a limited budget, just like all Malayalam movies, this movie showcased something as the scale of an international movie. It had a high concept, supreme characterization, all based on the Malayalam literature, literally stories, cultural tales that people hear growing up in Kerala. And putting that together and translating it on screen to build a foundation of a solid, starry universe is absolutely mind blowing. Nazlin and Kalyani Priyadarshan completely held the screen and did an amazing part. And of course, the biggest credit goes to the producer, Dilker Salman, as well as the director of the movie, who have been able to deliver this project the way we have enjoyed it. So I could go on and on for Loca. There's a review on my channel as well, and it is pretty much the obvious one, but the kind of elements they showed in that movie, the VFX, the BGM, the cinematography, just superb concept that everyone across India was thrilled to watch, was surprised and shocked that someone could accomplish this kind of a movie in that budget with such a vision and such a story, mass blended with high concept. Loca has everything and definitely makes the list of one of the best movies of the year 2025. The next movie which we're going to talk about is a sort of cult classic, all-time favorite by one of the most famous personalities of the Malayalam film industry, Basil Joseph in Pawnman. I mean, this movie felt like it came out of nowhere because Basil Joseph has been doing so many movies in an acting role. In this year itself, he might have done over 3 to 4 films in an acting role. And so you never know what to expect. They're all going to be good movies, entertaining movies, no doubt about that. But you never expected Pawnman to be something that had a high buzz before it. Everyone was excited, at least outside Kerala. And so when the movie came out and I finally ended up watching it, it was an absolute stunner. I was just shocked at to how the Malayalam film industry can continue churning out movies with picking up concepts and tales of characters that we don't even think about. A story in a small town based on some particular individualized experiences that, creates so much drama and content for a full-fledged movie that renders incredible performances, especially by Basil Joseph, and just fabulous storytelling that keeps you gripped and glued to the screen, puts the protagonist through a wave of emotions, a complete sort of up and down all throughout the movie. It makes you wonder what is going to happen next. It makes you wonder where this character comes from, where they're going to go, what is going to happen to the other characters. A very localized film that still is so cinematic in nature and is so extremely satisfying that it is just probably the best film of the year, and it definitely deserves any appreciation and awards that it still hasn't got, because that is something that should continue in the Malayalam film industry. They should make such films that are low budget, localized, yet have such a big cinematic impact. Now, I say cinematic impact for Pawnman because although a lot of the film was a typical localized drama, There were elements towards the climax in that sort of area, the fishery area, and all of that, that really gave it that cinematic excellence feel, that feeling of like, it's more than just a localized film. It's very entertaining. It has this sort of hero villain concept. It has things going on that still keep you glued to the screen. And of course, the performance and the surprise by Basil Joseph is just phenomenal. So Pawnman is something that is a cult classic already. It is going to be remembered for a very, very, very long time. People are going to revisit, watch it, and it's going to gain even more status as years goes by, because that is an evergreen story told in 2025 that deserves to be on this list. Another movie that came out that was fairly unpopular or received mixed reaction due to its sort of very sensitive content was Narayaneente Moonamagal. Now, before we talk about that sensitive content, the movie and the way it was made is what sets it apart. It's a story about three brothers coming together in their old home because of certain incidents and events, and how their relationship dynamics sort of stir the pot, so to speak. And to me, the most exciting moments were these dynamics between the three brothers and how they are explored, how past scars, past sort of wounds keep coming back up, how there's unresolved issues, how there's conflict that continues to be there, no matter how sensitive the current situation is or where they really want to be with each other. Some of that keeps coming up, and some things just cannot be fixed. And that's like a beautiful depiction of a family that is of that size, that has three people, parents, three families that have been created, kids, and how if everyone comes together, it's just always going to be hard to resolve everything and live happily ever after. That's just not going to happen. It's such a real story about that dynamic in families. And no matter what, there's always going to be some sort of tussle, some sort of obstacle, some sort of hurdles that they have to encounter that can never be ironed out. It's like, you tie a thread that's already broken, it's always going to have knots. And that's kind of the theme of Narayaneente Moonamagal. Now, this film got some backlash, or maybe a lot of backlash, or a lot of sort of uncomfortable reactions because of the uncomfortable subject that they were touching, which is the unknowing sort of weird attraction between cousins. And when it touched that topic and addressed that topic, it seemed to become the most important takeaway for the audience, which is why it might have received the backlash or the negative reviews and all of that. Again, I understand people go to the theaters with their families, they're encountering such delicate subjects. It can be hard or a very bitter or negative experience, and people don't really want to talk about it. But I think that it is the bravery of the director to even address that. This movie would have been phenomenal even without that particular subject being addressed. However, the fact that the director didn't hold back on their vision, the storytellers, producers, all the actors involved didn't hold back on those particular subjects in the movie, just goes to show that cinema still can be brave, still can address dark topics, still can address weird topics, because it's just the story of those people and characters in the film. It is no way, shape, or form a reflection of society or something that is preachy or anything. But that happened with those characters, with the backgrounds that they had, where they came from, all of that, things escalated and went into that darker territory. However, being able to showcase that in a very intriguing, gripping way, and telling a story that is so complex, so layered, so deep, was something that was very impressive. So for me, that movie definitely stands out. And even if it is because of those dark subjects, it's something you'll always remember, that there was a movie that addressed this subject. There was a movie that spoke about this, that made us quiver in our seats. And all of those are very impressive to come through the screen to the audiences. So I enjoyed that movie. I've reviewed it on my channel as well. And I think that if you haven't watched that movie, you should definitely check it out, with the understanding that there are some subjects and topics in there you may not like. But overall, the performances by Suraj, by Joju, everyone in the film was so supremely incredible. And these actors, they continue to impress in any movie that they take. I thoroughly enjoyed that film. Another film that came early in the year, starring Shobin Shahir, Suraj, and others, was a movie called Pravin Kuru Shapu. Now, this movie was intriguing and exciting even from the poster itself. It had a very trippy sort of vibe to it. And when you watch the movie, it is again another concept that is so amazing, fun, and cinematic to watch. It kind of reminded me of The Hateful Eight by Tarantino or other such movies that have this bizarre vibe to it and is set in a particular location and talks about events that transpired in those locations. Now, while the movie does have a sort of uneven screenplay, it has some loose ends, it doesn't fully satisfy you, it definitely remains an extremely unique, punchy sort of Tarantino style tale of telling a story, going back and forth with the various characters, their relationship, trying to blend events across different periods, trying to piece the puzzle together. And as you go through that movie, you're nothing but impressed. You're just absolutely amazed at the layers of the onion that are peeled in this movie, the performances, the setup, the cinematography. I mean, that was just a surprise for me that, we obviously expected it to be very entertaining from the poster and the promo. But when you go in and the things that happen in the movie are so amazing, amusing, and again, while uneven and while not 100% satisfying, it definitely deserves to be watched. It definitely feels underrated, and it definitely should be on most people's list of the best films of the year of 2025 because of the high concept, sort of very unique, fun approach that it has taken to storytelling and filmmaking. There's comedy in there, there's suspense, there's thriller, there's mystery. All of this packed in a wonderful, small budget, localized Pravin Kuru Shapu. Absolutely mind bending. That movie was just, I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, oh my god, this movie is absolutely incredible. It definitely gave me Hollywood vibes. It definitely gave me indie film vibes all coming together. And if you haven't watched that, definitely check it out. If Dileesh Pothan is in a movie, you cannot not talk about it, or it cannot possibly stay off your list of one of the best films of the year. Dileesh Pothan, anything that he touches is gold, and he's just such an amazing person, and such an amazing actor with a lot of talent. And one such film that he acted in was Osupe Oi. Now, that movie is very underrated. It is probably something a lot of people haven't watched. It's probably something people didn't appreciate enough. But to me, there were many reasons why this movie worked. Of course, the main part of it is the whole story, the screenplay, the cinematography, and how they've told it. But the characters, especially of Dileesh Pothan, and how they have approached them is very unique from anything else the actors have done. Dileesh Pothan, if you think about him and most of the movies, he's always this manly guy, right? He's always the alpha type guy. He's very manly, he's very macho, he's very sort of rowdy, so to speak. Of course, he's done many different roles. I'm not trying to stereotype him, but there's, if you think of a Dileesh Pothan movie, him acting, there's always this element of extreme alpha male type vibe. But in this movie, he explores his soft, depressed, confused, slightly, less bright or dim by nature, dealing with so much in his brain, doesn't know how to process it, doesn't know how to react, doesn't know why something happened, how it happened. He's basically playing in the character. He feels like a loser. He feels like he couldn't achieve anything. He doesn't really know why or what. He doesn't know what ambition feels like. He doesn't know what, becoming something feels like. He doesn't understand if he likes his family or not. He doesn't understand if he likes his father or not. He doesn't know what even is unresolved. He doesn't know if what he went through as a younger self is something that is blocking him from his own dreams. There's so much layer to that character that it really stands out as one of Dileesh Pothan's best ever performances. And if that isn't enough for you, there's all these other characters, including a fabulous story that starts as a very simple film about a family and their relationships, but then slowly gets into thriller territory out of nowhere. And you're now just wondering what the hell, you're on the edge of your seat thinking, what just happened? What the hell just happened? And the movie escalates to the next level after this event, and it just becomes something you never imagined. So Osupe Oi is one of those films that you go in thinking you'll watch a nice little drama that will have a good vibe to it, or have some sort of simple story to it. But then midway point, it escalates to the next level with twists and turns following right till the end. And at the end, you'll just feel like you're sitting there watching. I think Iratta had a similar feel where you would not be able to get up very soon after the movie ends. You'll sort of just want to absorb a bit, think about it. And me, Osupe Oi, had that feel at the end. You was just like hit with this piece of information that you just sort of kept thinking about the characters and what they did and why they did it, and everything comes and makes sense towards the end. So Definitely do not miss this. It may or may not be something you love and enjoy, but I highly recommend it, even if you just want to watch it for some incredible performances that highlight the actor's career. Definitely check this movie out. Highly underrated gem of the industry of 2025, therefore it is on my list. The final movie on my list before we talk about a couple more honorable mentions is the one and only Lalita in Tudarum. This movie was an absolute festival for fans of Lalita. This was something that felt like Drishyam. This was something that felt like a very organic family film. It felt like the vintage Mohanlal, playful, cheerful, loving, caring, affectionate, all those things. It was like a mashup of Mohanlal from Bro Daddy, Mohanlal from Drishyam, and Mohanlal from a couple other films all coming together. He's playing a simpleton that gets involved in such a particular incident and a sequence of events. So how does he deal with it? How does he manage with it? And how does he get back at the negative guys or the bad guys in the movie is the foundation of this film. And Tarun Murthy absolutely cooked on this one. He just went all out. He was able to deliver a story that has meaning, substance, content, logical things that tie together. This is a movie where the main star can fight because they were an action director at some point. This takes even that into account. It's not just because it's Mohanlal he can fight, with no background of fighting. Here they've explained everything so well so that there's no logical sort of fallacy in this film. This film also introduced a very famous villain, George Sir, who became so famous everywhere else. It was just a perfect hero villain Tucker type movie that people were whistling, people were cheering, people were enjoying, and all the twists and turns that came with it, all the things that happened, including the amazing visuals, cinematography, etc., makes this movie stand out for sure as one of the best Mohanlal movies in recent times. Even if you think about some of the interval scene and the sort of scenes before the interval, that amazing, like there's a festival procession going on, they're in the middle of the forest, all these music, the background, the twist that comes in there, the shock value, the character being put in a position where you don't know how they're going to deal with it next. This is incredible writing. I think one of the most famous examples I always give in my review is the Hindi version of Singham that I watched, wherein at the interval you just didn't know how the hero, no matter how good, is going to get out of the situation, because he now lands in the villain's area and the villain controls everything. So what exactly is going to do? And that sort of feeling of the hero has no way they can win now. They are in deep trouble, and it's going to be interesting to see how they come out of it. That feeling it should be part of all good mass movies, and Tudarum had that element at the interval as well, where you just felt like a character has been pushed into a corner. How are they going to come out of this? And so Tudarum, to me, and finally delivering all those crazy famous sequences that we have seen, the jumps, the sort of mass Mohanlal moments, as well as the deep acting moments, all of that is just something that people are going to watch again and again and again and celebrate. This is the kind of Mohanlal movie people wanted for long, that they could cheer, celebrate, and have a high rewatch value. And Tudarum definitely delivered that. I've also reviewed this on my channel. I've reviewed Osupe Oi as well on my channel. So do go and check out some of these movie reviews, reactions on my channel if you haven't yet. Another movie that came this year that's not necessarily on my main list, however did leave a good impact, had a good entertainment value, was Rond. I think that it's just one more movie by Dilish Potan, Roshan Matthew, that's just stunning. The way they portrayed the police and the things that they have to encounter, the various things that happen in one night, and there's an element of mystery to it, element of thriller to it, and gets into this sort of very deep dark space and leaves a haunting feeling at the end. Ron definitely accomplished that. I only spoke about 6 movies. I haven't watched 5, as I mentioned at the start, so this can definitely squeeze in as the 7th one. But Ron is something that if you haven't watched, I would highly recommend you watch that as well. If you have watched it, I have reviewed it on my channel. But Ron was something that definitely lived up to expectation. A similar fun movie that released was Padakkalam. Padakkalam was absolutely enjoyable to watch, absolutely entertaining. The fact that they could, they had to act like each other, they had to switch bodies, this Jumanji type vibe to it that it had, the game and the mystery and the supernatural elements, all of that was very fun to watch. However, at the same time, in the second half, there was certain lag in the screenplay, certain sort of confusing elements as to why they dragged it out so much, and overall, a pretty limited, satisfying feeling. It was just one of those snackable movies that you enjoy, you watch, and then you don't really remember about it until you read about it. That's how I felt about it. So you enjoy something while you watch it, but you don't take away much. It doesn't remain with you, and that's the issue with Padakkalam. However, a great attempt at a very entertaining movie with a different concept, thoroughly enjoyable as well. Now, as I mentioned, I'd love to know your thoughts on these films as well as the 5 films that I mentioned at the start. And of course, as of Christmas, there's Sarvam Maya that's released. That's everyone's waiting to watch that movie for Nivin Pauli's comeback. His combination with Akhil Satyan, Ajju Varghese, Vineet Srinivasan singing, all of that coming together, sort of like a major throwback to Nivin Pauly films. So very excited to watch that one as well. If you have watched Sarvam Maya, leave your thoughts and comments below on how that movie was. And of course, if there are any other movies that I haven't mentioned on this list that should have been on this list, I either didn't watch it or I forgot to mention it, leave your thoughts and comments below on what your favorites were for the year. You can have 5, you can have 10. Put them all down so I make sure I watch some of those if I haven't, and let me know your thoughts on the best of Malayalam 2025. And until then, like, comment, share, subscribe, and keep watching for much, much more.